Hello everybody, welcome back. Scorpio Caesar here, part of the Super Retro Force. And today we're returning to the Xbox 360 once again with some more Xbox 360 pickups. This has been a series that just kind of came out of the blue and has done really well for the channel, and the reception has been fantastic. We took a little break last time to talk more about holofoil video game covers, but today we're returning to the Xbox 360 to talk more about some of its library, some of my most recent pickups for it, and whether or not I feel that these games are worth adding to your collection or not. So with that out of the way, I gotta say thank you all for tuning in and welcome to the CesArcade.
Get ready.
Now in most of these videos I like to start off with a PlayStation alternative. So for the PlayStation 3, also released on the Xbox 360, however, the PS3 version of Quantum Theory was the main platform that these developers at Tecmo Koei developed the game for. So I went with this version, and it tends to go for a little cheaper than the Xbox 360 version currently. Now Quantum Theory is a third-person shooter that has a lot of cover-based elements, and think of Gears of War, right? Like, listen, I get it. Gears of War didn't invent the whole third-person cover shooter genre. Anybody ever play Kill Switch? But Gears of War did it the best. And this is another instance, like Inversion, that we talked about in the last episode, where the developers were trying to get that same magic in a bottle formula from Gears of War, put their own spin on it, and it doesn't feel anywhere near as good. But I definitely feel I have to play a bit more of it to really give my true verdict on it. It is still a pretty serviceable, if not decent, third-person shooter. So if you're interested in that kind of game, Quantum Theory might be up your alley. I paid only around $17 for this one.
Some even say it grew there by itself. Nothing ever came out, and nobody could ever get in.
So next up we have Dungeon Siege 3. Now this is a game by Square Enix. It's kind of like a Diablo style game where it's kind of isometric view. You're pulled out far away from the character. You can kind of zoom in a little bit. You kill enemies, you get loot, that kind of formula. It's got a pretty involved story as well. And I gotta say, the characters you can choose from this game are pretty decent. Me personally, I'm more of a fan of Katarina. I mean, if you look at this character here, pretty gorgeous, considering how most female video game characters nowadays have jawlines stronger than mine. This is a game that's also backwards compatible on current day Xboxes, and it runs like a dream on the Xbox One X. Dungeon Siege 3 is a game I really wasn't expecting to get too into. However, once I started playing it, I was like, this is kind of addicting, and I could kind of see why a lot of people like these style of RPGs. If you like that style of gameplay, check out Dungeon Siege 3. Pretty cheap to pick up and definitely worth checking out if you're a fan of this kind of game. Next up we have one that I remember being hyped for back when it was first announced, and it was coming out on the Xbox 360 back around the earlier days of the system. And when it actually came out and I got to play it, I was not impressed. I was like, this is nothing like I was hoping it would be. And that game is Over G Fighters. Now this, man, I was so hyped, hoping that this was going to be the Xbox's Ace Combat series, and I did not get that whatsoever. This is more of a sim, and it's pretty involved in terms of the controls. It doesn't feel anywhere near as fun or arcadey as Ace Combat ever will. It was only around $10. And honestly, when I returned to it to check it out once more and give it another shot, I was still not having a good time with it. I don't know. This one, pretty forgettable, probably not worth picking up unless you're really interested and like air combat games. But me personally, just stick to Ace Combat. Get Ace Combat 6. Next up, we got a game that, oh man, this series I never really got into. I only have earlier memories with the original Xbox version when my brother-in-law had gotten it from my parents for Christmas, and he started playing it, and they walked in on him while he was playing the strip club scene. Pretty awkward if you ask me. But anyways, we're talking about Dead to Rights Retribution. I don't know exactly where it takes place in the story. I heard something about it being a prequel. Not exactly sure about that, but from what I've played, this game is fantastic. You actually get to control Shadow, his dog, and it is wild to be able to rip people's throat out. You can bite the balls off somebody in this game. It's freaking amazing, worth checking out. The gunplay feels really good. The cover mechanics, they're not the best, but they still feel pretty decent, and the story feels interesting enough where I want to keep playing it. So if you haven't checked out Dead to Rights Retribution, this was available on the PS3 as well. I think the PS3 version still goes for more than the 360 version. However, this is not a game that's very common, especially now. This one I paid around $30 for. However, I personally feel it was worth it and definitely worth checking out. So if you haven't checked out Dead to Rights Retribution, get it. It's definitely worth your time if you're into third-person shooters. Next up, we have Timeshift on the Xbox 360. Now, this is a game I had on the PS3 for quite a while, but I heard it played and looked better on the 360 version. It is also backwards compatible on current day Xboxes, so of course I'm going to play this on the One X. Now, this game, I remember playing the earliest demo for. It didn't turn out like the final game ended up turning out, and this one is still pretty good. It's developed by Sierra and Saber Interactive. Timeshift is a first-person shooter with a lot of time-based mechanics. So you have this power suit that allows you to manipulate time. You can slow down time. You can actually kind of rewind time. And it's pretty interesting and definitely worth checking out if you like first-person shooters with a twist. For me, I love the first-person shooter genre, especially when it came to the 7th generation of consoles. And Timeshift is definitely worth your time if you're looking for another first-person shooter to play. This one cost me around $10 or something. Now we have another first-person shooter to talk about, and let me just tell you, the 7th generation was like a FPS fan's wet dream. And the next one we're talking about is Syndicate. Now, this is a game that I feel a lot of people overlooked back when it came out, and I've since had it on the PS3, but I wanted to get it on the 360 because, once again, I prefer playing my first-person shooters on an Xbox controller, and this one is, of course, backwards compatible with current day Xboxes, so that's always a plus. Now, Syndicate in particular is a game that looks absolutely gorgeous. The use of lighting, it feels very cyberpunk-esque, and I love how all the neon lights, the colors in the game really do pop, and the gameplay, the actual gunplay, feels fantastic. You always get games in the genre that kind of feel better than others. This is definitely one of the best feeling ones. Like, something about the guns just have that nice feel to them, that nice pop whenever you shoot around. You feel it in the controller. It just feels like you're dealing with powerful weaponry, and this game is no exception to that. The story is very interesting as well. Your guy has some cybernetic implants. You're also allowed to kind of slow down time. You even have like quirks in this game where you can actually like have the enemies turn on each other just by overloading the circuits in their brain. It is quite crazy, and if you haven't played Syndicate, I highly recommend picking this one up. This is like a $15 to $20 game, whether you get it on PS3 or Xbox 360, and I definitely recommend you all check this one out if you're a fan of the first-person shooter genre. Okay, next up we have a game that had a physical release on the Xbox One and PS4. However, I decided for the Xbox 360, and that game is Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Now, the reason why I decided to pick this one up is because the Xbox One and PS4 versions fetch a much higher price because they're more on the uncommon side. However, when they came out on the 360 and PS3, they made so many copies of these games. You had the original vanilla version and then the ultimate version. I highly recommend you pick up the ultimate version. Doesn't matter what console you play it on. Now, from experience, I tend to prefer my fighting games on the PS3 with the DualShock controller, just for the D-pad. But I feel this is a game I can play with the analog stick on the Xbox 360 just fine. And that's the way I played it originally. I still have the Shuma Garoth and Jill Valentine DLC, so that still works here. And you have so many amazing characters in this game. You got She-Hulk, you got Phoenix Wright, Firebrand, and now that they announced that the Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection's coming out, doesn't include this one, that's perfectly okay. Still readily available, paid around $16 for this one. So if you missed out on this one, The only thing you'll be missing out on these versions is some of the DLC, which was mostly cosmetic anyways. Next up, this is a game that I remember playing, and I got pretty far in it, but I never finished it. And then I never returned to it again, but I really did enjoy it. It doesn't really take itself very seriously. You play as Garcia Hotspur in this game. Your girlfriend was taken away by demons, so you gotta go hunt them down, take them out by any means necessary. The game is comical, it doesn't really take itself too seriously. There is some nudity in this game, and it's pretty violent, but me, I love this game. And I'm glad that it's finally getting a second win when the remaster comes out, whenever it does come out. So if you haven't played it yet, probably wait for the remaster. That's probably the better thing to do, honestly, much like Lollipop Chainsaw. But I remember playing it on the 360 and PS3 back when it came out, and I wanted to own it for that console. This one I paid 40 bucks for from Keisha Boy Games on Instagram, and he was kind enough to hook me up with this for a really good price. Me personally, I think it's definitely worth it, and I love this game. Next up, we have a game that has since shot up in price. I swear to God, I've never heard of this game up until recently with all this FOMO crap. Now, this is a game I got from fellow YouTuber Nostalgia Road. He sold it to me for $30. It doesn't have the manual, but it is in great shape. And honestly, I probably wouldn't have spent more than that for this game. And it is Dark. It's a vampire game. However, it's got a lot of stealth elements to it and a lot of like choose your own dialogue options. And the thing that really like caught me off guard when I started playing this, I didn't spend too much time into it, but right away my wife was like, "Is that Geralt?" Yeah, and when I looked it up, I'm like, yeah, that does sound like him. It is Geralt.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Shit, man, you really don't know, do you?
My memory is a bit foggy at the moment.
It blew our minds when we heard his voice. We're like, you know what? This game just got some extra brownie points. It doesn't feel like a really good game to play. The frame rate's kind of all over the place. But I have to say, from what I've played, it's definitely an experience that is worth checking out if you're interested in some of those weird, quirky Xbox 360 games that didn't really get a lot of attention when they came out. This game got mediocre reviews, and the one thing I have to say, besides Geralt of Rivia's voice being in the game, I have to give it credit. The cell shading in this game really do make it stand out compared to some of the other games in the genre. And I gotta say that I like the graphical style of it. I really do. And I'm looking forward to playing some more of it. Like I said, it's not an amazing game. It was released later on in the console's life cycle, but I don't know, it's just something about it. I feel like it has a charm that's gonna make me want to get through this at some point. So anyways, Dark. Thank you again, Nostalgia Road, for selling me this one. Now from this point forward, we're just gonna be talking about racing games. I promised in the last Xbox 360 pickups video, I was gonna talk about racing games, so let's get started. First off, we have Pure. Now this game was bundled with Lego Batman. For a lot of people, that's probably the version you have. It's dirt cheap nowadays. You can find it bundled with Lego Batman. Me personally, I prefer to get the game standalone if I can. I ended up paying more so than I probably should have. I paid around $11 for this one. You could probably find it in bargains for like $4 or $5. This is a Disney published game developed by BlackRock Studios, who did an amazing job taking the ATV formula and turning it on its head, making it really fun to play. The game looks fantastic, even to this day, and it feels great to play. Now I know we talked about Nailed in one of the previous episodes, and that game I felt was a little too fast for me. Like, I was flying off the roads. I couldn't really control the ATV too well. This one you feel like you have more control of the ATVs in this game, and definitely worth checking out if you haven't already played this one. This one, definite classic. Forza Horizon, the original. We picked up Forza Horizon 2 on the Xbox 360 not too long ago, but this one in particular is the better game, especially on the 360. This one got this more open world. It's not really based off real life circuits, and it's a lot of like festivals. You got fireworks going off in the background. You got rich yuppies telling you how you need to trick out your roids and get all your money. And yeah, that's fine and dandy and everything, but the gameplay is still solid. Peak Xbox 360 Forza is Forza 4 and Forza Horizon. So if you haven't checked out the Forza Horizon series, this is a great way to start. I paid around $10 for this one from the game supplier 1994 from Instagram. So yeah, got Forza Horizon in my belt. Now this one, I'm not too crazy about. This is Ridge Racer Unbounded. This one was developed by Bugbear, the Flat Out developers, and this was kind of like Ridge Racer branching out and trying a different style of gameplay. Why they felt they needed to do this, I don't really know. I guess they wanted to capitalize on the popularity of the Burnout series at the time, which was kind of taking a backseat and kind of went on a hiatus. So I can understand Namco Bandai wanting to try something different with the Ridge Racer brand. However, I personally don't feel that it worked too well in this one. This game is so damn orange. Like, it's mostly oranges and browns. It's not a pretty game. Ridge Racer has always been a vibrant, colorful game, and you lose all that with Ridge Racer Unbounded. You also lose the fun drifting mechanics from the classic Ridge Racer series with this one. The drifting in this game is, I don't know, I think I just need to play it some more to really get a hang of it. It doesn't feel anywhere near as satisfying as those games, and it focuses more on hitting your boost and boosting into your opponents, which ends up crashing them. Using the boost to get through parts of the environment to open up shortcuts. It's more flash over substance personally for me, and I'm not really digging it too much. I think I should probably play a bit more of it, honestly. Some people may like this one. For me, I gotta say I much prefer Ridge Racer 6 on the Xbox 360. For a launch title, I sunk in a ton of hours into Ridge Racer 6. A much better experience that only got better with Ridge Racer 7 on the PS3. But Ridge Racer 6 is still a fantastic racing game. Ridge Racer Unbounded, paid around $23 for this one, and it was more of a curiosity. I don't know if I'm a big fan of it, to be quite honest with you. But if you've played it, what are your thoughts about it? Let me know in the comment section down below, because it feels like a very divisive game, and I just wish they didn't go this route, because now Ridge Racer has been gone for like a decade already, it feels like. Can we just get a new Ridge Racer game? Like Ridge Racer 6, please? Next up, we have an absolute classic on the Xbox 360. And this one was a 7th generation exclusive, believe it or not. This game only got a release on the Xbox 360 because by the time the PlayStation 3 came out, it was already like too late. So they decided to make Burnout Revenge on the Xbox 360. Despite it getting multiple console versions, despite it coming out originally on the PS2 and Xbox, which is where I originally played it, I ended up getting it on the 360 as well. And let me just say, sure, the bloom is a bit much in hindsight, but this game looks and runs beautifully on the Xbox 360. And it's a similar situation to Need for Speed Most Wanted, where it got 6th generation versions and a 7th generation exclusive on the 360. However, this one you can still get at a pretty decent price. I paid around $15 for this one. I can see it probably going up in the future, but honestly, a lot of copies of this were produced, and I see it go on sale on the Xbox Live Marketplace from time to time. But me, I'm a physical collector, and I had to own this game on the Xbox 360. I mean, just look at how beautiful it is. Now look, this is the original Xbox version. And then this is the 360 version. It really doesn't matter which version of this game you play, it's still a fantastic racer, and to this day, still my favorite in the Burnout series. And last but not least, the one that I probably spent the most on. This is a game that's shot up in price recently, especially on the 360, because it's a game that kind of came out around the same time as Split Second, and not a lot of people really played it. Unfortunately, it was one of Bizarre Creations' last racing games, and that is Blur. Now, I had this on the PS3. For some reason, it does not want to install whatsoever on my current PS3 model, which is the Super Slim. It worked on my PS3 Fat, it worked on my PS3 Slim, but for some reason, when I try to install it to play it on the PS3 Super Slim, it absolutely fails every single time. So I opted to get the Xbox 360 version. And since I generally tend to prefer playing racing games on the Xbox 360 for the custom soundtrack feature, I decided to pick up Blur on the 360. I'm a little broken up as to how much I had to pay for this one, but Blur is such an amazing racing game. Think of the fun arcadey racing feel from the Project Gotham Racing series and add all these kind of weapons to it. It really is an experience worth checking out. The game to this day is simply beautiful. Absolutely stunning. Still one of the best looking racing games I've ever played. And it was unfortunately a game a lot of people passed up on. And I honestly don't know why. It's such an amazing racer that I hope most of you get to check out. If you can't, just emulate it or download it digitally, you don't have to spend as much money as I did on it physically. I spent around like $50 after shipping and handling. Not a fan of what I paid for that one, but Blur, definitely one of my favorite racing games for the 7th generation of consoles. And that's it for today's episode. A ton of amazing Xbox 360 experiences, and then you have Over-G Fighters. But from what I've picked up so far, I gotta say this Xbox 360 collection is about to trounce my original Xbox collection. And I didn't think that was ever gonna happen, but here we are, 2024, stores closing down soon. You know what that means, prices are gonna keep rising for some of these, but let's face it, not all of these. Don't panic buy like I have been doing. Play it smart. Look for lowest price plus shipping on eBay if you have to resort to eBay. If not, look at your local retro game shops or try claim sales. I have a video for that if you haven't tried out claim sales. A lot of these games you can get for pretty decent prices. Some of them, not so much. Shadows of the Damned, wait for the remaster for that one. But a lot of these pickups I'm pretty happy with. And I gotta say, this Xbox 360 collecting journey has been wild. I still have another stack of Xbox 360 games I gotta talk in the future about, but for now, this is what we talked about today. If you played any of these games, let me know in the comment section down below what your experiences with them were, and if you really did enjoy them, or if you just straight out hated them. I'm looking forward to hearing your opinions. Anyways, everybody, thank you again for joining me on this Xbox 360 collecting journey. And I hope to see you in the next video. As always, remember to check out the Super Retro Force, and I wish you all a good game and good night.
Super Retro Force.